On the phone, we have the newest member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, a gentleman who played at Auburn for college, and he went on to play for the Rams, the Steelers, the Panthers, a guy who should have been in the Hall of Fame years ago, Kevin Greene. Kevin, how did you end up going to Auburn for college?
Yeah, good question. No, my mom and dad were from Chocolaca, Alabama, and they grew up Auburn fans. And when you're born in Alabama, you're born either into an Auburn household or a University of Alabama household. So my mom and dad, Auburn fans, and then when Keith and I were born on the road, my mom and dad, the military and all that stuff. And when we were born on the road in the military life, we were born into the Auburn family. So when it came time to go to college, there was no question where my older brother Keith and I was going to go. We were going to go down to Auburn.
Did Pat Dye recruit you, or was it basically a foregone conclusion you were going to go there?
I went to high school up in Granite City, Illinois, which is considerably north of Auburn by a couple of states, so they didn't really recruit in that area. Plus, our high school was really known for its soccer team. We were like, soccer state champions for like 4 years in a row. So anyway, the football team wasn't really well known. We were average, I think, but competitive. So I sent my films down to Auburn, and they replied with a letter. Said, hey, we filled the spots for linebacker, and we'd like you to come down and walk on. And essentially, that's what I did. So,
what was it like playing Auburn back then? Because you had a pretty good.
Repeat your question, David.
What was it like playing at Auburn back then? Because your running back was probably the star of the team in Bo Jackson.
Oh, I know. We had great running backs. My years there at Auburn. Bo Jackson was one of them. Lionel James was one of them. Britt Fullwood, a Pro Bowl back in his own right, was there as well. Tommy A.J. Was a fine back. Tim Jesse was a fine. It was like running back, university. But it was hard, and I learned. Bo Jackson, he trucked my tail a number of times, but I wasn't the only one he was running over. So I felt good about that. But I was trying to lay leather on Bo, and he was a special cat now. He was a special cat, and I knew him, and I knew that, practicing against him at Auburn was going to make me better. I just knew he was special. You could just see it in the way he moved and how fast and how hard he hit you. But it just, it made me a better player. It made me a better player. And that's the way you gotta look at it, is that, what, you're going to improve as long as you go against people that are better than you. But you don't get better if you go against people that you can beat up on all the time if you think about it. So, no, that was really, really cool playing against him and Lionel James in practice. Another fine back that played multiple years in the NFL. So, yeah, it was great.
Who was your biggest opponent back in Auburn? Was it Alabama back then, or did you have a bigger rival than Alabama?
No, there is never, and will never be a bigger opponent than Alabama. So, yes, that was our big opponent. So Auburn, Alabama is such a huge rivalry that dates back freaking centuries, I'm sure, to the caveman days. So, of course, it's Alabama.
Who was the bigger man on campus back then, Charles Barkley, or was it Bo Jackson?
You know what? They were, obviously. They were both very, very well known, Charles and Bo, and I remember Charles being such a good dude. Charles Barkley didn't really know me from Adam. Being a walk on there at Auburn. One really known, not a scholarship guy, and he was just as kind and nice to me as if I was a big-time famous, college player like he was. Charles was just, he had such a great heart, just a fine person, and so was Bo. And Bo, as good as he was, he didn't have any ego and no attitude, and just another just a great, classy individual. Bo Jackson was too. Man, they were just both great, special young men.
How long did it take for you to realize that you could play Division I football and earn a scholarship?
Well, I didn't really ever earn a scholarship, but I did, starting when the starting outside linebacker went down. His name was Gerald Robinson, and he was a fine player. He would go on to be a first-round draft choice with the Minnesota Vikings. But when he went down, about three quarters through the year of my senior year there, Coach Dye, put me in as a starter. I was Gerald's backup, and then I started making things happen, and I ended up, leading the SEC in sacks my senior year, 1984, and defensive player of the year and everything. But that's when I really started to step up my play at Auburn. Is when I finally, got an opportunity to start because Gerald Robinson went down, with an injury. And so it was just a blessing. You don't want to wish injuries, David, on anybody, but in that case, it just really opened the door, for me at that time.
So you never were on scholarship at Auburn?
Yes, no, sir, not at all. And that was okay, because Pat Dye, why would he, spend a scholarship on a walk-on there for basically just playing 2 years? It just doesn't make sense. And I understand that, and I thoroughly understand that. But that didn't take, anything away from my experience playing for Auburn. I mean, I totally understood, my mom and dad could afford to, put me in Auburn and keep me in Auburn. And so that wasn't a deal breaker, by no means. I mean, good God. I mean, I had a chance to play for Auburn. I mean, it was just a phenomenal opportunity. So, no, I mean, I'm just blessed that Coach Pat Dye, recognized something in me and got me in the mix, and got me on the field, and I did some good things for him, So that's the way I look at it.
Did you have any idea that the Rams are going to draft you?
Not really. I mean, I was just hoping to get drafted. I remember during the season-ending interview with Coach Dye, after the season there in 1984, he meets with all the seniors, and I asked Coach Dye point blank, I said, Coach, do you think, that I could play at the next level? Because I really didn't know, and I was tracking a military career. I was already a second lieutenant, in the Army Reserve, so I was really tracking a military career. That's where my focus was, my mindset. But when he told me in his office, he said, yes, Kevin, absolutely. I think there's a place for you somewhere in the NFL. And that's really all I needed. That's all I needed. And now I started thinking, okay, I'm going to turn my workouts up. I'm going to start running more and training harder and just be ready to potentially walk on somewhere. If I get a chance as a free agent, in the NFL, I'm going to give it my best shot. Hey, we only got one life, right, to live, and I figured I'm going to give it my best shot. And then the Rams drafted me, and first player picked in the fifth round. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've actually got my foot in the door, this kind of thing. So it was just unbelievable for me, as a former walk-on, that I just got drafted. Unfreaking real. This is crazy. So.
Was there any temptation to go to the USFL, or was it just NFL all the way?
Yeah, I mean, USFL had drafted me in their territorial draft. The Birmingham Stallions had drafted me, and I had that, and it was a backup game plan, But when Coach Dye told me, yes, absolutely, I think there's a place for you somewhere in the NFL. I mean, that's really where my focus then started to hone into that, and being drafted by the Birmingham Stallions in their territorial draft. I mean, that was a blessing too. I mean, that was like, oh my, got a chance with them. But Coach Dodd said, I really got a chance to run on the same field with the big boys, with the big guys. And so that was really where my focus was.
So you joined the Rams and John Robinson's coach, but he had you at, defensive end originally when you were playing linebacker in college?
No, he had me at linebacker. Maybe that's a common misconception by people. But, no, I was an outside linebacker at Auburn. We ran a 3-4 defense at Auburn. The other guy on the other side of me at Auburn was John Daly, and Greg Carr and Ben McCurdy with two, what was his name? Ben, I can't remember who the other starting inside linebacker was at Auburn. But anyway, we ran a 3-4 at Auburn, and we ran the 3-4 there with the Rams. So I just slid into that 3-4 outside backer position. So, and then he had Coach Robinson had me running down on kickoff team and cracking noggins and, kickoff return team, punt return team. So I paid my dues for the first 3 years, doing all the special teams. And in my fourth year, I actually got my first start in my fourth season, and I responded with 16.5 sacks.
Was the key when you got a new defensive coordinator, did he kind of change the scheme, and that's when you kind of flourished?
No, not really. With the Rams, we had the same defensive coordinator. His name was Fritz Shermer, and just a fine individual, great. This is an old guy, and just really loved Fritz Shermer. But he was there, and I think him and John Robinson said, "Hey, we got to find a way to get Kevin Greene on the field because he's running down on the kickoff team. He's crushing people." And they started doing that first 3 years, get me in on third down and long to rush the passer and see if I had any pass rush skill and stuff like that. And I responded. My second year in the league, I had 7 sacks just as a part-time, third down pass rusher, but a special teams guy primarily. And then my third year, I had, 6.5 sacks in a strike-shortened season. I think we only played 9 games or 10 games. So they came up with an idea to get me on the field, and that idea was what they called the Eagle defense, And so that put me in a position to rush the passer. So they figured out a way to get me on the field.
Your rookie year, you played against the Bears in that NFC Championship game. What was that game like? I was at that game. It was the coldest game. It's snowing, and it just seemed like that Bear team was unstoppable.
Now, they were tough, no doubt, and it was a chilly game. But I felt pretty good. Our quarterback was Dieter Brock. He had just set a passing efficiency rating with the Rams. He was former, a Canadian football player that came down and really, Dieter Brock played really well for us that year. And we had Eric Dickerson running the rock, I knew Eric Dickerson was special. I figured we had a chance to go into Soldier Field. We had a chance. But, they were rolling. You're right. Chicago was rolling that 4-6 defense and Buddy Ryan and all the things happening there. And they started to get ahead, and that crowd got into it. And wind started whipping off the water, and it started snowing, and it was just brutal. And it was a tail thumping. And it is what it is. But it was really cool to go to the championship game my rookie year, and see the standard that was set by my old dogs there with the Los Angeles Rams on how we play the game. This is what we do. We win playoff games. We win. So it was good to see that standard.
Was there a big change when Coach Chuck Knox came in versus John Robinson?
Yeah, the change really started in 1991. Coach Johnny Robb brought in a new defensive staff. Fritz Shermer was let go, and they brought in Jeff Fisher to coordinate the defense. And Jeff really didn't know how to play me. He played me like 6 games at right defensive end, 4 games at left defensive end, and 6 games at outside linebacker. He just didn't know how to play me. My previous 3 years, in 88, 89, and 90, I had 46 sacks. I was killing people. But we didn't have a good year team-wise in 1990, and I think that promoted Coach Robinson to let go of Fritz and that staff. Although individually myself, I had a good productive year in 1990 with 13 sacks. But in comes in Jeff Fisher. He didn't know how to play me, so I struggled in his scheme. And I only was able to, get 3 sacks that year in 91. And then, of course, in the following year, in 92, the entire staff was let go. So we brought in Chuck Knox. Chuck Knox brought in George Dyer. George Dyer was his name, was the defense coordinator. And then he put me basically as an outside linebacker in a 4-3. More coverage responsibility, less pass rush opportunity, play to run hard at the point that. And I did that pretty good. I led the team in tackles and led the team in sacks. As a part-time pass rusher on third down, he let me rush the passer. But I knew I really couldn't have an impact in the games as a 4-3 outside linebacker. I really need to be attacking to have a direct impact in the game. And then in 93, first year of free agency, I signed with Pittsburgh, and that put me back as a 3-4 outside backer.
Because back then, not that many teams were running 3-4s. It was mostly 4-3s, right?
That is correct. There was not a lot of teams running 3-4. And so I was just really, really blessed. I think the Lord, he works in mysterious ways, and he orchestrated my steps. And I flew into Pittsburgh, and their starting left outside linebacker just so happened that he wanted out of Pittsburgh. And his name was Gerald Williams. And Gerald went and signed a free agent contract with the San Diego Chargers. So really, Bill Cowher was really needing a left outside linebacker in that 3-4, Dom Capers 3-4 pressure blitz zone package. And it was just a perfect fit for me. It was when I basically played those 3 years that I was highly productive with the Rams, 1988, 89, and 90, where I mentioned before that I got 46 sacks. So all Bill Cowher did was say, hey, we're going to put you back at your old position, let you do what you do. And I said, cool, I'm all about it. And just loved playing, for the Steeler Nation. I mean, daggone, Greg Lloyd on the other side of me, and he's slobbering as much as I'm slobbering. He's freaking out as much as I'm going gonzo. And we hunted, man. We hunted together extremely well. And we had a fine defense, fine offense. And those 3 years at Pittsburgh really defined my career.
Was it tough to leave Pittsburgh to China?
Yeah, it was. It was tough to leave Pittsburgh. But I wasn't ready to ride the pine after the 95 season. We lost the Super Bowl against Dallas. And let me think. My Pittsburgh Steelers years was year 9, 10, and 11. So I was going into my 12th year. Coach Cowher, he clearly wanted to play a young fella out of Colorado named Jason Gilden. And Coach Cowher wanted me to take Jason, under my wing, teach him tricks of the trade, show him how to watch film, what to look for, increase his vision, and this and that. And I just wasn't ready to be a backup to anybody. And Coach Cowher really wanted to kind of turn the page and really wanted to get Jason Gilden in there as a starter, and I knew that. And so, I left and I signed with Carolina in 1996, which would have been my 12th year in the league. And just so happens Dom Capers was the head coach, and he's like, hey, Kevin, I'm going to put you back where you belong, an outside linebacker, and just do what you do. And help teach this 3-4, pressure scheme to the rest of your brothers on defense. And I said, okay, let's do it. And so I led the league in sacks again, and I was first team All-Pro, linebacker of the year again. I wanted to stay a Steeler, but I wasn't ready to really ride the pine at that point in my career. I knew I had, some more football left in me, some high-level stuff left in me. So I had to leave.
I saw you on TV with Eddie D. Bartolo last night with that special about the Hall of Famers. You played for Frisco. What was Eddie like?
Eddie was great. Eddie was wonderful. And that was probably my 13th year in the league. I was a 49er, and he was a great owner, great organization. I really enjoyed my time that 1 year in San Francisco. And I think Eddie, did a good job of, bringing together a lot of talent, to make a run at the Super Bowl. And we just fell a little bit short. We actually played the championship game there in '97 against the Green Bay Packers, and Favre beat us, and they went on to, I think, lose the Super Bowl. But Steve Young, of course, a fine Hall of Fame player. We had Jerry Rice, and Chris Doman was there on defense. So we had Rod Woodson, was there. We had some Hall of Famers on that team, but just Brett Favre was in the peak of his career, and they came in the candlestick and beat us. But just a wonderful time there, in San Francisco. And it was just essentially a blip on the radar as far as my career was concerned, just 1 year, and then I was basically back in Carolina. But it was great, playing for Mr. DeBartolo and that organization for a year.
What was your favorite moment in the game?
What game is that?
In football. Is there a game that stands out as your favorite game or your best game?
No, not really. I mean, I've had that question asked to me before, and it was just a blessing. I mean, good Lord, I've said this before. One weekend I was looking into the eyes of Joe Montana, and the next weekend I was looking into the eyes of Dan Marino, and then next weekend I was staring into the face of John Elway, and then Warren Moon, and then Troy Aikman, and then Brett Favre, and then Steve Young, and it just went on and on and on, and just great quarterbacks, and I knew they were Hall of Famers. I knew they were special when I was lining up on the other side of the ball from them and looking at them. I knew, and my job, of course, was to hunt their tail. I mean, they didn't even have to pay me to do it. I just knew I was living a dream. I was totally in touch with reality at that time, and I knew that they were special cats, and my job was to hunt them down and crush them. And I did, and it was just an unbelievable dream come true.
I don't think anyone sacked Joe Montana 4 times in a game like you did.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually. I mean, I sacked him 5.5 times in the last game of 1988. One of my fellow defenders, I'm not going to mention his name, he got called for holding on the play, and one of my sacks was nullified. So I ended up with 4.5 sacks on Joe Montana in that last game of the year, 1988, to help get the LA Rams into the playoffs. But that was a surreal game. Obviously that was a big game for me. But I had a lot of big games. Just blessed to play with a lot of great players that helped me, along the way. Great coaches and great players. And I mentioned some of those great players, that helped me along the way.
Did you ever think, if I would have played in this 3-4 my entire career, I probably would have had over 200 sacks. That, again, I was covering basically running backs, wide receivers, everything coming out of the backfield or out of the outside. And you know what? It just would have been a completely different number for sacks for me.
Well, I always thought that I would have more sacks if the referees would call more holding calls. Because offensive tackles, they are some mauling dudes. Very few offensive tackles block me, within the rules and regulations of the game. I mean, and I've got this saying, and it's what I taught my kids in Green Bay as a coach there for 5 years. You know, if they can't hold you, they can't block you. So you got to think about that now. If they can't hold you, they can't block you. You know. So I always thought I'd have more sex if the refs would have specifically looked at me and whoever's in front of me trying to block me each and every play. But they couldn't do that. And plus, they want to let the big boys play. You know, they want to let them play, and they know the fans at home don't want to see a lot of holding calls, yada, yada, yada. So that's the way football goes. Oh, man.
With going into Hall of Fame, you had to wait a while to go in. Is it difficult waiting for that phone call or waiting for that knock on the door nowadays?
You know, it was confusing, David, more than anything. I just didn't understand the criteria, you know, for induction into the Hall of Fame. And that's the bottom line. I just didn't understand what qualifies a man to be inducted, because they were clearly putting in people that did not play as long as I did. And essentially, we played the same position, and they didn't have, you know, nowhere near the same production statistical numbers that I had, you know, and the impact that I had on 4 different teams. So I was just scratching my noggin more than anything, you know, confused about the process. But, you know what, I wasn't going to get stressed about it. You know, I was patient about it, you know, and I just, you know, I just kept praying about it, you know, and trusting in the Lord that, you know, my time will come in God's time, you know, not when I want it, but it's going to happen in His time. And it was. It was just, it happened in His time, and it was the right time in my family. This was definitely the right time in my life for this to transpire. Confusing more than anything, but you know what? That really it mocks nicks. You know, really doesn't matter now. I'm in, and I'm part of an elite fraternity, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't faze me now.
You finally got your Super Bowl ring as a coach with the Packers. How fulfilling was that?
It was extremely fulfilling. I always wanted a Super Bowl ring. It's something that I fought tooth and nail for 15 years as a player, and came up short 15 years. Went to 6 championship games as a player, lost 5 of them, and the one championship game that we won, we lost the Super Bowl. So I mean, it's just so hard to go to the game, much less win the thing. And so as a coach in my second year up in Green Bay, just went to the game, won the deal, and just unbelievable, bittersweet, because we beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, so it was bittersweet to beat the old team that I owe so much to, you know, in the big show. And just grateful to, you know, Coach Mike McCarthy and for giving me an opportunity up in Green Bay to coach for him and his staff, and, you know, Ted Thompson, Coach Tom Capers. Just really such a blessing to play for that organization for 5 years and get a Super Bowl ring. Just really grateful to Coach McCarthy and that entire organization.
Is there like a favorite coach you had throughout your career?
I was blessed to be really surrounded by a lot of good coaches. Excuse me. Excuse me. I've got some, you know, fungus in my throat or something, but, you know, it started at Auburn. I mean, I had a great coach, Coach Pat Dye. You know, what a fine coach he was. Just a hard, physical coach. Just loved playing for him. And my position coach there was Joe Witt, another good coach. And then I went into the NFL with the Rams, and John Robinson, that head coach. Fritz Sherman was a great defensive coordinator. They actually created a defense for me to get me on the field. My position coach there was Fred Whittingham, who played in the NFL a number of years at linebacker. Just a great position coach. And then goes to Pittsburgh. Coach Cowher, of course, we all know about him. And then Dom Capers was there as the defensive coordinator. And my position coach at Pittsburgh was Marvin Lewis, who's the head coach at Cincinnati. I mean, good Lord. And Dick LeBeau was on that staff. I mean, and then I go to Carolina, and then Coach Dom Capers is the head coach there. And then Billy Davis was my position coach there. And Billy Davis has been a long-time defensive coordinator in the NFL, recently with the Philadelphia Eagles. So it just went on and on and on. I was just surrounded by wonderful, good coaches and great men of football, and surrounded by great players. So I was just blessed all along the way. Truly was.
What team do you identify most with? Is there one you think to yourself, I'm a Ram, I'm a Steeler, I'm a Panther?
You know what? I mean, there's a part of me that bleeds a lot of different colors. I mean, 8 years with the Rams, I was a good player, a Pro Bowl player. You know, so part of me bleeds, you know, blue and gold. It surely does. When I went to Pittsburgh, I mean, they really put me on the stage, and my career really took off there in my 3 years at Pittsburgh, opposite of Greg Lloyd, working with Rod Woodson, Hall of Fame players, my corner, in different pass coverage schemes, and so, you know, I bleed, you know, black and gold. And then I went to Carolina with Lamar Latham and Sam Mills and all those guys there, and you know, and I bleed a little bit of, you know, that teal blue and black, you know, and so I bleed a lot of different colors. But if you do look back at my career, I mean, there's no question. When I stepped up on stage there in Pittsburgh, it was a whole nother level that we played at as a defense, and what we were able to do as a defensive unit. So, you know, I bleed a lot of colors, you know, but it's great to be a part of the Steeler Nation.